with Mike and his sidekick, Freddie. Hi, Freddie.
Morning, folks. Today we're going to talk about how to draw the reader into your book. When I write a novel, I strive to have no style at all. And by that, I mean, I don't want the reader to admire the way I put my words together. I want the reader to forget the way I put my words together and tell the story in such a way that the reader believes in the story completely, falls into it, to the exclusion of all other distractions, including the language. Now, there are a lot of writers who don't do this. There are a lot of writers who celebrate the language and use their words as a form of architecture to construct monuments, mostly to themselves, but also to show their mastery of the English language and to expand your vocabulary. Anthony Burgess, who wrote Clockwork Orange, is expert at this. He's a great storyteller. You'll love his books. They're easy to read, but you have to read them with a dictionary at hand because you'll be looking up a new word on virtually every page. Before I get into what to do, I want to tell you what not to do. And this is from a brand new novel that was one of the New York Times 10 best books of the year and a National Book Award finalist. She felt their eyes, all those executioners. "Welcome, young lady," said Mickey Wright, the premier announcer for Chain Gang All-Stars, the crown jewel in the criminal action penal entertainment program. "Why don't you tell us your name?" His high boots were planted in the turf of the battleground, which was long and green, stroked with cocaine white hash marks like a divergent football field. It was Super Bowl weekend, a fact that Wright was contractually obligated to mention between every match that evening. "You know my name." She noticed her own steadiness and felt a dim love for herself. Strange. She'd counted herself wretched for so long, but the crowd seemed to appreciate her boldness. They cheered, though their support was edged with a brutal irony. They looked down on this black woman dressed in the gray jumpsuit of the incarcerated. She was tall and strong, and they looked down on her and the tight coils of black hair on her head. They looked down gleefully. She was about to die. They believed this way. They believed in the sun and the moon and the air they breathed. Well, it's an exciting book, and there are reasons why people like it, but it's a book that's very self-conscious about its language, and you never forget that. You don't quite enter into the story completely because the words are in your way. Another example of a writer who is very self-consciously artsy is Michael Chabon, and I have to say I like his works very much. He wrote The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which is about the birth of the comic book industry, and he wrote a novel called Telegraph Avenue, and I've mentioned this before, because in that novel there's a 5,000-word chapter about a parrot that consists of only one sentence. Jeez. A 5,000-word sentence. It does not flag. He's an expert craftsman. You read that sentence all the way through because it's entertaining. One of the things that makes it entertaining is the style. You're enjoying the style. That's not the type of writing I do or that Chuck Dixon does, for example. We're trying to immerse the reader in the story itself without being conscious of the narrative. And here's a couple of hints to make that happen. Number one, the first time your protagonist appears, name him. Don't say, "He woke parched." Say, "John woke parched." Number two, avoid the passive tense. A brown suit was forced upon him. He wore a brown suit. That's what you should say. And there are all sorts of little language fetishes that people embrace that you should avoid. And one is gerunds, because it's the same as using the passive voice. I looked over at John, and he was getting a glass of milk out of the refrigerator. Was getting a glass of milk out. I looked over. John got a glass of milk out of the refrigerator. It's more direct. And anything you can do to reduce the verbiage while not sacrificing a story, you should. The story rules, of course, whatever the story demands. But long sentences filled with clauses and passive tenses get in the reader's way of enjoying the story as an adventure without being conscious of the narrative. There are so many of these gerunds. I mean, Paul was putting the gun away. No, Paul put the gun away. And another secret, and Stephen King says this in his book on writing, which I recommend, is adjectives are not your friend. One adjective here and there is okay. When you add two adjectives, then it gets in the way of the reader's enjoyment. If you choose the right verb, you don't have to layer the sentence with adjectives. He bit down on the chicken sandwich, noting the sharp flavor of cayenne pepper and hot sauce. Instead of saying that, you say he bit down on the chicken sandwich, immediately sweat popped on his forehead.
Yeah.
And that's showing, not telling. Show, don't tell.
May I ask a question?
You may.
Would you like to define gerunds? Gerunds?
A gerund is a word ending in ing that's usually constructed of a verb.
Oh.
Running is a gerund.
Okay.
Eating is a gerund.
Thank you.
Direct quotes are exceptions to all these guidelines I'm laying down, because direct quotes you use to characterize someone in the book. And if your person is mealy-mouthed, a politician, for example, they're going to wallow in the passive tense. They're going to use gerunds all over the place, and that gives us a glimmer of their character. And my favorite example of politicians using the passive tense is, a decision was made.
Oh, yeah.
A decision was made to send that man to jail. A decision was made. But who made the decision? They're trying to hide that.
Right.
That's people who use the passive tense in that manner are usually trying to conceal something. So if you want to write about a politician, remember that they wallow in the passive tense and they use general terms rather than specific terms, such as disinformation. They can't say lie. That would be too abrupt, too direct. He was lying. No, he was spreading disinformation. Watch out for that. And finally, don't torture the language. And this, again, this only applies to the type of story I tell, and I'm thinking specifically of my crime thrillers, Biker, which I'm trying to do in the noir manner, after the example of Richard Stark, for example, or Dashiell Hammett, or Ray Bradbury. Not Ray Bradbury. Raymond Chandler. They knew each other, by the way, but Raymond Chandler's use of the language is an exception, because one of the things that made his writing memorable were turns of phrases that were cheeky and drew your attention and were witty. And the one that always comes to mind is, he was about as inconspicuous as a tarantula on angel food cake. So that's it. That's it. My advice to you, if you're writing an adventure story or a thriller or a mystery writer, try to make your language disappear into the story so that the reader is only conscious of the story itself and not the words that he's reading.
Sorry, I was distracted because Freddie, I think, is chewing on something he wasn't supposed to. So I was trying to figure out if I needed to scour his mouth out and get that out of his mouth.
Well, next time we'll just close in on Freddie and we'll ask him about it.
Well, I'm hoping he's not chewing on something he's not supposed to. Anyway, back to Mike. All right, any other tips?
You see the hat.
Yes.
Follow my example.
Well, hey, Freddie's going to get in on the action, do a little bit of a little wide angle. All right. Well, great. Another great video. Mike's videographer took a little vacation, so that's why you didn't see any YouTube uploads for a couple of weeks. And appreciate everyone watching, liking, commenting. If there's anything new you would like to see, Well, not new. Okay, what am I trying to say? Topics. Any topics you'd like to hear about?
Send them to me. I'm on Twitter at Bloody Red Baron. And you can always reach me through my Facebook page, The Comics and Novels of Mike Baron.
Yeah, and you may comment on this YouTube channel too. All right, thank you for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.